All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome everybody to this week's AI in Action. We have a volunteer, which is great. Ben's going to take us through marketing workflows with LLMs. So, I'm going to hand off to you, and I'll go video off, but I can watch the chat if you want, or if you want to monitor it yourself. And if people have
No, please,
questions.
please monitor the chat.
Okay, so I'll monitor the chat. If people have questions, throw them in there. I will pipe up and bring them up, and then yeah, depending on how you run it, I don't know if you're presenting the whole time or we're gonna have a discussion or what, but we'll get to it. It's your show.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I guess if people have similar workflows they've used, I'd love to hear more about it. So this is not only marketing workflows, but this is just so Fractional AI. We're a consulting company. People hire us to write AI software for them. Um, Typically, they hire us for 3 to 6 months to like work on a specific project. Uh, Yeah. I've talked in the past about like OCR stuff we've done. But we also do like voice agents and um or like kind of mundane stuff where basically like there's some configuration in a platform that they want to use LLMs for, and we have to like figure out how to like for their configuration how to like make LLMs work. That's like another frequent thing. Yeah, it's some of it's weird where it's like we're hired for like people are like, oh, use LLMs for this, and then it's like the wrong decision, but mostly it's a good decision. Anyway, so that's sort of what we do. So this is all of the ways that aren't coding that we use, or not, it's not all of the ways, but it's mo many of the ways that we use LLMs. Okay, so the first two things are like marketing workflows, and then we're going to talk about like some knowledge transfer workflows we do internally. Okay, so marketing workflows. Um, people can see the slides, right?
Yes, they're coming through.
Okay. So the first is a LinkedIn Postmaker. So I guess there's a couple. So the CTO makes LinkedIn like wants to make LinkedIn posts. We'll see some examples on the next slide. The problem is so at first he writes them, then obviously you try like ChatGPT to write them. Um, Sort of the issue with um, this like the issue with this is that what's the issue with this? The issue with this is the following. The When you ask ChatGPT to write something for you, it's the tone is very gimmicky, I think is a good way to say it. I don't actually know how to describe it, but it's a specific kind of tone that's maybe not what you want. I don't know, maybe I'm
Sloppy.
sure sloppy, yeah. Sloppy. Yeah, that's a really good way to say it. Like the tone is never like I don't know why, but it always seems like it's like your worst lawyer friend wrote you a two-paragraph email or something, and it's like, okay, you didn't need to say that much for that long. Anyway, so the CTO wanted to like firm this up. So um he just asked ChatGPT, and ChatGPT didn't help. So what he did was he took all of his previous LinkedIn posts and sort of like put them into like a long prompt and was like, here are a lot of examples of like here's the idea and here is the prompt, right? So I think like as part of the prompt, and then and then he did in n8n there's like a little he made a little dashboard where he can like input to this like n8n workflow that like has all the context of these things. Um, and then he like was able to make some posts. And now this is how he makes LinkedIn posts. He, just here's what they look like. I don't know. People can look at them for a second. Just a little bit more. Um, yeah, about n8n. I think in the past for another one of the things that I'm going to present on, hopefully, the he used a custom GPT. But I think custom GPT didn't have enough for some like the input context window wasn't big enough. Um, I don't understand that exactly. I should have followed up with this, but I don't understand that exactly because maybe custom GPTs just have small context windows. Because it seems like, in theory, if you wanted to, now models have big context windows. I don't know. Anyway, so that's the first thing. This is LinkedIn Postmaker. Um, does anyone do anything similar to this? Or...
I've considered it, and I had I did have a gig a while back, or was gonna have a gig to make something kind of similar for ScreenPipe, which is just like a little like it dumps your like your screen and process context into a little spot where agents can reach it more or less. But I think the principle is solid, i.e., like just have a dumping ground for when you think of good stuff, and then have a something that optimizes content generation out of that stuff, and then post it out like in an algo optimal kind of way. I think is so.
Yeah, yeah. I think just yeah, I don't think I explained this well, but basically the way he uses it is whenever he comes up with an idea, he'll just like send it into the the n8n workflow, and if it comes up with good stuff, he posts it, and if it doesn't, he just tosses it. Um, yeah, so that's the first one. The second one, the sales deep research snooper. Okay, so here's the thing. So there's a lot of the sales team is sort of like independent from the engineering team, which I guess is fine. There's like 2 points of friction here. One is that um one is that okay, there's 2 points of friction here. One is that like we need to be in contact. Like when if they sign a client, like we have no context for the handoff. I think there's something else later that helps with this. But the second thing is that uh the second thing is that in theory, we're supposed to like be keeping abreast of what the sales team is doing and like who they're selling to and why they're selling to them. So that like we can get broader exposure to like more potential client projects and things like that. Um, Yeah, so we were all encouraged to like go to sales meetings, like go to random sales meetings. The issue is like it was like kind of annoying to like go into the people on the sales team's calendar and like go through go through um like each of their sorry, go through each of their like meeting events and like decide if I want to go to that. I did that a bunch of times. It was fine, but it was just also annoying. So I set up an n8n workflow to Snoop. So first it like looks at his um calendar events or like whatever. I mean it's his in this case, but it can in theory set up to be looked at anyone's, but looks at his calendar events and then it checks to see if it's like a new like a potential client, right? Like it like right now it like get sort of current clients or internal meetings and things like that. Whenever there's a new meeting on his calendar, it like does this process. Sorry. And um, then it does like deep research. Like, yeah, it does the prompt's kind of boring, but it basically does a deep research query for both background info on the client and then potential projects we could do for them. And now it slacks me. I actually was gonna have it. It just like oh sorry, hang on. It slacks me. Um, let me let me see if I can. It's like I don't. Yeah, it's like sorry, I'm not going to show it. I didn't put it in because it's like I don't want to accidentally reveal anything confidential, but it slacks me, but like the formatting's terrible, so I haven't had it slack the whole team yet. Anyway, so that's like a second thing we do. Uh yeah. Any thoughts on that one?
So I'm kind of curious, what are the sets? Like, is it just doing public web deep research? Are you doing your custom? Do you have custom data sources? Like, what all are you pulling together into that kind of background and potential
Yeah,
projects?
so I'm just using I'm not using any I'm just using public web. Like even like I'm just using OpenAI's deep research endpoint. I'm not doing any custom stuff. We'll talk a little bit more about the custom stuff. We have like some custom things we're sort of we started working on for like internal knowledge stuff that we'll talk about a little later. But um yeah, but we don't right now have any. It's not. We'll talk about it later. But we at the moment we don't have any proprietary data uh that would be like helpful for something like this. If that
No, no kids right now. They're all at school.
David, you're not muted, so you're talking through us. Um, thank you.
Okay, yeah. Does anyone have? Oh, sorry. Does anyone have anything else on that? Any other questions?
Curious on the choice of n8n in particular. Was that mostly familiarity, or is there something that was a particular sell for you for n8n?
And it is nice. I mostly did it because I was unfamiliar, which is sort of the opposite. Like other people at Fractional use n8n and they like it. And it's pretty good. It, it, I don't know if pretty good's right. Yeah, I think pretty good's right. Yeah, that's the right word for it.
I
It's
use it pretty frequently as well. One of the things that I like about it is that the workflows are fully JSON, and ChatGPT tends to be pretty good at JSON. So you can just sort of like ask for a workflow in JSON and drop it in. That's my kind of thing I like about it. But it's
yeah,
pretty.
that was the thing that was nice. I just had I guess like I'm having an unreasonable expectation for it because when I was working, like this is the first time I worked with it basically, and I was just like hoping that I would like it would like magically do all of the like matching up things, and it just like doesn't, which is which is like totally fine. But I wasn't, but I think I think I sort of agree with you that like the fact that you can like do JSON output from an OpenAI call and then it just like works, you can pull it up anywhere later in the workflow is good. There was one issue where you can only configure things once n8n. Like, sorry, that was, yeah. It's hard to configure things before it's actually run all the way through. And I was having trouble getting it to run all the way through because it was triggering on new calendar events. And so I'd have to, so in order to like test it, I had to wait for a new calendar event to actually run all the way, like a new calendar event that was with a client, a potential client that I wanted to do deep research on in order to actually get the whole workflow working.
Right.
I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah. But other than, I think it's pretty good. I agree.
Oh yeah, chat says you can pin data in n8n when testing. Fun fact, I guess.
Yeah, right. So the pin data, right? So the pin data didn't like you can pin data. I was only able to pin a sample event from the Google Calendar thing, and then the sample event was failing the like if check to see make sure it was a client thing. I in retrospect I could have turned off the if check, but that's what it was. Um. Okay. Anything else? Oh, any of oh any um oh g- curious why to go with n8n versus just writing code directly with Claude. Um it, n8n is faster than writing code with like if you're doing integrations, n8n will be faster. That's my guess. That's what I did. I would choose n8n again over like trying to just like write a quick Claude script. Also, the fact that it like this runs on triggers. Like it triggers, like obviously you could set something up to run on triggers for new Google Cloud events, but this runs on triggers. So like on triggers of new Google Cloud events for my coworker. So like that setting that up is like a little difficult. I think. My guess is you could like I could write a script that would run, look through his calendar, find any of the like do this classification and then print it out. Um, but the fact that it just runs without me constantly is like something that I don't think would be easy to set up. I don't know. Pear, do you have
Yeah, no,
other
no,
thoughts?
that makes sense. And I think the ready-made integrations, I think like for me, I work a lot with workflows and data processing, and I use Cursor and Cloud Code. And it's pretty good at the wrangling and moving the data around, but I agree the integrations and the scheduling are good points of in it. And
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So that's that. If if anyone has anything else, let me know. Otherwise, we'll move on to the next one. All right. Okay, let's go to the next one. So this interview helper. So um this is also like an n8n. This is also not it's not n8n. This is a custom GPT, I think. Um and so here was the issue. The CTO wanted to like write good summaries for the technical interviews. So when you put them in Ashby, we use Ashby now, but we used something else before. And so basically he took stream of consciousness notes and he wanted to like he'd spend a lot of time like turning it into like a professional write-up or whatever. So what he did was he used like this was like a year ago, but he used like deep research or whatever to like come up with like to do a like really good job coming up with a prompt. And then what he did was um like that would like dictate the style of ChatGPT. This is the same problem as the LinkedIn one. So he had like a bunch of his like because he'd interviewed a bunch of people at this point and wrote them up. He had a bunch of like, oh, here were my notes and here was what I submitted to like so other people could see. So there were a bunch of those that he had. And basically he was able to like work with deep research and come up with a prompt that worked for him. It actually included no examples of like no um examples. I don't know if that makes any sense. Like it included no examples of like the pairs of like raw notes and uh what he submitted. But so he was able to come up with this prompt, and then he used the prompt to create a custom GPT. And now whenever he wants to submit interview feedback, he just slams it into the he slams whatever his raw notes are into custom GPT, and it spits out something. And he usually he says he lightly edits it, but he really likes it. So that's another one. Um, okay, I'll pause for any thoughts. Okay. Okay. So knowledge transfer workflow. So part of like, I don't know, I hopefully have like done a good job of explaining this. Like we have a bunch of different engineering teams working on with different clients. The kind of problem is that like we don't like we have to communicate. Like in theory, if I learn something, like I learn how to do something, like I learned something with OCR, right? Like no one else knows that information in theory. Like they could come ask me, or you know, as we'll see, like we do write-ups at the end. Um, right. But uh the problem is like what we were doing is like I would basically just I would harass is the wrong word. I would ask individual engineers to like write up summaries of what they did on that project. And like so here you can see like this is an example of what I did. All these have like paragraphs with them, but basically tell me all the AI tools you used, tell me all the engineering tools you used, and like write up why they were useful, right? And then the problem is like that's not super useful when um like first of all you have to like individually like make sure people do that, and then the other one is like it's harder to look up. We started solving this problem with this. We used like an AI voice agent. Sorry, this so basically there's an interview agent, and the interview agent will like ask you about the project. Basically it takes like 30 minutes ish to do this interview, but basically it'll ask you about the project. It'll ask you about all of the things you did. Like, what did you learn? What did you wish you knew ahead of time? What are the tools you used? So there's a bunch of these questions. Like as part of stuff for a client, we built out a framework that's like pretty good for like you do an interview with someone and here are the questions you have to cover. And like we did a good job. Like there's a couple things. There's a couple big things here to figure out. There's one managing like, oh, how much do you like ask follow-up questions versus like you just move on to the next thing, and like making sure that you do all of them. And then there's some like technical problems where the like there's some like technical problems where for the voice agents trying to, if you have like a complicated like state it's trying to manage, you have to do some like tricks with that, which I cannot talk about, but because I didn't work on them, but that's I can like get you guys more details if you guys want. So that's what the summaries does. And the summaries now it comes like this is just a piece. I did an offboarding thing recently, and so this is like sort of what you would get, where you now get like it does an interview with you, and then it like does a write up for you, and then you have a write up of like, oh, what was the business impact? What's the like what are the things, right? Yeah. Yeah. So that's the AI. So yeah, so now everyone, I guess, when we roll off projects, is doing uh this like interview with the voice agent, and then that helps us write up the summaries.
I like
Uh,
this one. I set something up pretty similar. There was a company that I was working with, and they had it was a blockchain company, and they had a couple of nodes go down, and they needed to do like a like a debrief, a post-mortem report thing, but all the messages were like strewn around everywhere in like three different people's Slack conversations, and terms were all weird. So I sent them to something similar for this. I think I used like harmonica.chat or something like that, and just had set something up where you set up an agent, and then you have everybody like interview with it, and then they can send whatever links they have, and then I would get that report and then synthesize it into like an actual full report and save a little bit of time. That's pretty nice.
oh, okay. Is that the end, or did you cut out?
Yeah, no, that's the end. Just
Okay.
anecdote, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I think even just like having the Colleen, even just having the small like number of check mix, like checkbox, like, oh, ask about this, I found very useful. It was like very easy to like. I find talking easier than writing, I guess. But it was like very helpful.
Yeah,
Uh,
I guess my inquiry, do you guys what we do over when I'm like working with, well, I encourage it on any team, but my current team is happy to do it, where we just transcribe basically every meeting and it ends up in Google Drive, the idea being like, let's build a lake so we can process it later, which is, I guess, the first half of this without the agent, where we just collect all the stuff that we would have said. But yeah, I'm curious if you guys or if anybody else has like a transcript procedure for meetings, and then if that's augmented at all at the moment.
yeah, I'm curious to hear what other people think. I have an answer, but if does anyone else have an answer? Okay. Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, so we're working on some interesting stuff here for like processing, particularly like stand-up notes and things like that to be able to be like, all right, what actually happened this week? Can we determine that automatically based on going through our meeting transcripts, and then can we go and do something interesting with it? So definitely an area that we're exploring. I also know a lot of people use Granola for like post-processing transcripts into notes, and that's an interesting and useful tool in this space.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them. Gemini will do it by, we just use Gemini just because it's in your workspace by default. But I still use Highlight. I used to use Fireflies. I used Granola while I had a code for it, but now I don't have a code and it's not that good. But it is nice, it's a little polished. But yeah, no, I think the paradigm is interesting, I guess, in general.
Yeah, I'd be interested. So the thing, Granola and all these others are very like one meeting, right? Doing this thing. I think the thing that's really kind of interesting to explore is how do you look at a whole bunch of different meetings and look at how things happen over time and try to kind of manage all of that. And that's a space that, yeah, we're definitely exploring. Wouldn't say we've got it figured out yet, but a lot of interesting things to be had there.
Yeah, we use Fathom. So first, we're sort of also on the first half of this where we have a bunch of the tools that like are diarizing this stuff, but we haven't like really figured out, even for this stuff, like we haven't really figured out how to make people use it effectively. I think like um uh uh right, so like you'll note here in this where's this? Here, there's two problems here. The second one is no one looks it up, used it to look up problems. It's we haven't solved this problem yet, but I think probably something. I don't know why I'm like connecting the two. You'll see later, but we just use Fathom and we record every meeting, and in theory we have access to it. There's one project here, the last project I think. Um, they're sort of starting to use the Fathom recordings to try to like get information, like to store it in a database, and then like maybe get information from it. I don't know. I guess I can report back to you guys whenever we make more progress on that. But I think we're kind of in the same situation
Well,
you guys
yeah,
are.
I think that's one of the I think I noticed that because when as soon as I got ChatGPT pilled and Obsidian pilled basically around the same time, and I noticed that like collecting all of this interesting cool stuff in Obsidian is really really easy, but getting myself to go back and actually have it when I need it later, or be able to effectively search it when it's like on the tip of my brain, like that's the actual challenging part. Finding the stuff and cataloging it is easy, but surfacing it is hard.
Oh, we should. Yeah, I kind of. You could also, David. You could also try like every meeting you can dump into. Like he says, dump it into. David suggests dumping it into Slack. You could probably dump it into a separate channel, and then if people don't, if it ends up polluting search results, you can just nuke it or something.
Yeah, we do that actually, or I post at least for significant ones. I'll take my high. So Gemini will transcribe our stand-ups, but I also have my personal recorder of Highlight. And the nice thing about Highlight is it automatically generates a summary immediately as soon as everybody's done talking. So it's very easy for me to like copy paste that over into Slack as soon as it's done. And I don't do that for every stand-up, but especially for stand-ups that have like important or like big changes or whatever, I'll drop that into the like transcripts channel so it's searchable later. I found that to be quite helpful.
Yeah. I think also we have we also do something. I don't know exactly what I should check with Joshua, but for we have internal tech talks on Tuesdays and stuff, and I think there's always an AI summary of that that gets posted into Slack. But I don't know how that happens. Maybe he's just doing it in real time. Is probably the most likely, but I think it's sort of a similar vein. Okay. So write summaries. You get this like nice I just this is it's actually a whole nice like 2 or 3 page PDF that's a summary of your conversation. I snipped it so there's no client info. I think I did it right. Uh yeah. Um yeah, okay. Okay, bench time aggregator. Okay, so bench time. So so mostly we're on clients, but occasionally we're intentionally not on clients and we have like a week or two to work on like or 3, I think. I don't know if anyone's a week or two to work on like e- all right, yeah, sorry, a week or two to work on like whatever you want to work on. There's um sorry, I think that the goal here is like when we're working on individual client projects, a lot of the code we write is proprietary for them, or like we just don't, even if it isn't, even if it is like useful, like reusable, like let's say we make a voice agent or something, and like the code is reusable, but like if the only state it exists is whatever we deliver to the client, then we can't um what do I want to say about this? We can't we can't reuse it for a different project. So in theory, with Benchime, you could like refine it and make it into a library, and then we can use it internally. Um, yeah, uh, yeah, that's what the why. So what does the Benchtime aggregator do? So someone made a bot that went through all of Slack, all of our Slack history, and also all of our Notion, I think, and looked through everything that anyone ever said and tried to classify it as, is this someone suggesting something like an improvement to the company that we could use bench time for? Um, and they went through and like whatever, it just like ran through all of the Slack ones and then it, like whatever it did some filtering and Darian did some more filtering and then we got like there's like 40 entries like these, which are all of the suggestions of bench time projects. Um, which yeah of bench time projects that it had and then it like posted them in a long list of like potential bench time projects. I think we've already done 3 or 4 of these, which is nice, but in some sense it's not really related to like him aggregating them, although it's very useful because now they're all in one place and now we have voting, so if you want a bench time project you can just vote on it and then later someone might see that you wanted them to do it and then do it. uh yeah, so that's this one. Does anyone have any thoughts?
Thing that's occurring to me at the moment is that most of these are um feel very similar in that the pattern seems to largely be uh data lake into data warehouse, right? Where it's you have a large corpora of data, you want to pull something meaningful out of it and then store that in a way that's easy to access later. Which I think is one of the strong cases for LLMs in that like lakes and warehouses were kind of a thing in data if you were a big data nerd up until now, but they didn't really work all that well. Like portability was kind of and like processing is like, okay, if you can hit it with a SQL query, then you're gonna find it. But if unless you know what to query, you're kind of that's out of luck. Um, but I think the lake to warehouse paradigm in the age of LLM is an interesting it's an essay I would read, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess right. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Hey, I'll leave it on this one. Maybe it's what's a KB? Oh, a knowledge base. Okay. Yep. Um, okay. So this is what we were talking about earlier, the meeting summarizer. So like sales is a lot of potential meetings with clients. There's like 2 reasons why you as a salesperson, like why we want to like record them. First is so that like in the future, if like something comes up, you can like reference it. Like if something comes up again, you can reference it. And second, sometimes these like potential clients become actual clients. And then um we're sort of getting better at this, but there's this like really rough thing where like we kind of need to remember everything that was said in the entirety of the sales process because like sometimes like you're meeting with the decision maker, you meet them with like a couple times and they're like, oh yeah, let's go. And then you have like a lot of other conversations with other people. And like it's like, very helpful to like reference back to like okay, what is the person who signed the contract, like what do they want out of this contract? Even though like obviously other people want other things, especially with like I'd say especially with like AI features, right? There's like it's like a million things you can build out for a even for like a specific client, and like you know the people actually doing the work might want something different than the people who are like signing off on it, and like obviously the goal is to like align those two people so that like that everyone at this company, like the company you're working with, wants them, but like it's not always happening. And also like you might for it's like easy to like drop like, oh, this important person you're never meeting with has an opinion, and then like you just never know, like you just easy to forget anyway. So um we're trying to like figure, I think this is part of this project, like the reason why it's still in development. I think this first half where it's like going through the Fathom transcripts and sending it into Notion DB, I think is working pretty well. The part that's not working well is what we talked about here, which is like, okay, now what do you do now that you have it in a Notion DB? So I think that's still in development, but I don't know. Yeah. Any thoughts?
Do you have thoughts about what you would do with it from there? Like, I mean, I think the handoff problem is real, and it's something everybody has. But I'm also curious, like, if this sale doesn't end up closing, like, can this stuff feed into sort of like a warm prospect, like drip sequence, or what are the other things that you could do with that?
Yeah, I think the thing that's like there's some stuff like I think just under like being able to query it is like pretty useful. Like it would be pretty useful to be like, oh, how many other people have talked to us about like, a doorbell project or something, right? And like it's like possible no one in this conversation that needs to know about whatever previous doorbell project was in that conversation. Like so even or it was like 6 months ago, so no one remembers anyway. Or like I feel like I feel like a good example of this is like for like engineering diagrams. I feel like a lot of people have been like toying around with the idea of like somehow automatically going from like engineering diagrams to like purchase order. I think is like a common like thing people are trying to do. There must be some like like off the shelf solution or something not by now, but maybe not. But like I feel like I would want to be able to search for like just search on that topic. My guess is like we probably need to do something clever with like the search indexing. Like maybe you don't actually like maybe it's fine and you could just like like hook up a normal search, like a normal search tool to an LLM, and then have the LLM at like you could ask the LLM and then it'll do a normal search and come back with an answer for that. Those are yeah, I don't really have any great thoughts other than that. Maybe I should just go do that. Maybe that's what I'll do this afternoon.
Honestly, yeah, just giving an LLM a SQL tool and telling it what's like giving it a vague notion of what's in the database is surprisingly effective. Like, don't overthink it on this one. In my
Yeah. Yeah. Um, okay. I think that's all I have. Does anyone have anything else?
So
Well, yeah. Okay.
I'm curious. So a lot of this was internal process stuff, which is great. You mentioned the LinkedIn post example as a sort of marketing related one. Are there any other kind of marketing or sales like use cases actively being used? I know there was somebody else in the channel who was doing like an automatic deck preparation and doing stuff. Like I'm kind of curious around this space of like what is the edge of what we can do here?
Yeah. So yeah, I think so. I'll say this. Like, I think there's another thing which we like aren't yet sophisticated enough to be able to do, where once we once you're big enough, in theory, someone at the company knows someone else at the other company, and you could store that information somewhere. That's like one angle of attack. The one that I mean that one was like a crazy workflow. I if anyone has linked it, they should link it because it was like they were like searching for companies. They're like in Europe, I think, and they were searching for European companies and like trying to figure out what they could pitch them, and then once they found companies that they thought they could pitch, like this is all automatic, and then like making pitch decks and they got conversions through that. We don't do anything insane like that. I think the biggest thing is just like for yeah, for this kind of thing is like probably like internal knowledge. Like we'll probably the thing we'll probably have the most leverage in general is like internal knowledge tools and like leveraging like doing using AI on internal knowledge tools rather than like outreach per se. Yeah, I know that's like a little disappointing, but um yeah. Anyone else?
I think it's generally an interesting question of, or like, and is sort of, I think there's a case to be made. I don't necessarily think that I agree with it, that the best LLMs are, well, it's easy to say LLMs are much better at creating like one-shot internal throwaway tools than they are, something I'm going to serve to a customer for a long-term period of time, or an internal tool that I'm going to use as like a primary basis for, something that becomes a internal fixture of some kind. But I think it's the question of like, it would be good to have something that is not just a prototype for this situation, but the time that I would need to invest in order to make something more than a prototype for this makes it not worth it to do it. Is there a way, like, in what situations is it appropriate or like better for me to sick a code gen agent on it and sort of go to bat like with the thing that pops out after a minimal cleanup, and like, of the times when it's appropriate to do that to solve a problem, is there any times when it's appropriate to do that to solve a problem for a customer and like have some level of expectation that the problem is going to remain solved, kind of thing, is sort of an interesting touch point to with sort of this general sort of, okay, like we have LLMs, we can generate stuff like n8n workflows, like what's the right spot to do it is an interesting question to think about, I think, and still doesn't have a objectively correct answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing I really liked about the LinkedIn example that Ben shared is it was leaning into the probabilistic nature, right? He threw a bunch of stuff in it as he had ideas. It would go off and chew, and then he was curating which things he actually chose to use. And I think kind of if I think about the LLM experiences right now that feel magical, that don't feel like slop, they're ones that allow me to sort of explore things more quickly, do things like where I already have an idea and I can try it out and do those things, but they're not things that like try to totally take away me. They don't, it doesn't, this isn't wired up from idea to this is live posted. We've seen all the bots doing that. They're full of slop. It's terrible, right? This is wired up from idea to, okay, here's what that might look like if you fleshed it out a bit. And now I can take that, I can edit it, I can tinker with it. I can say, oh no, let me try another thing, right? Like, so I think there's something about this, like, how do we think about designing those loops and those workflows? What are the things where it's like, oh, to your point, like I have this idea. Um, how do I get it from it's an idea that I'll never have the time to implement to it's an idea that I can sort of have, an AI go on and then I check in on it, or that it proposes a thing and then I do it, right? Like I think trying to get these probabilistic tools to reliably generate quality without a human in the loop feels like what lots of people are trying to do, and essentially all of them are failing. And the more we can think about like how do we actually leverage the value stream of them being probabilistic and not, like and use them for what they're good at, which is to like augment our ideas and give us feedback and deal with all this sloppiness. But like LMs have no taste. We shouldn't try to make them have taste. We should lean on the fact that we as humans have taste.
Yeah. I feel like I've seen good things from like AI art, and it's always like, oh yeah, but a human decided to make this, or a human decided to like do this, and then like anything that's like have you I feel like the most ridiculous one was like the Facebook one where this lady picked up a rock and like fell back onto a bridge or something. I don't know, like it just felt bad. It was like terrible. I don't know.
I mean, I met a guy 2 years ago, probably, or a year and a half ago. So it's a lot simpler models than we have right now. He was a jewelry designer, and he ran a jewelry store. And what he was doing was he was using which one was the image generator that was in Discord, whatever it was, but uh,
Midjourney?
yeah, he was using Midjourney, and he would spin up thousands of things based on like, oh, I have this idea, blah, 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 or try a bunch of this, and then you'd look at them and you'd be like, oh, that'll never work, that'll never work, that looks terrible, that'll never work. Oh, this one, if I massage it a little bit, that's going to be really cool, right? And he would take these thousands of things he generated and curate them down to a set of, tens or hundreds, and then modify them based on his actual knowledge of what's going to work in jewelry physically
Yeah.
and get these really innovative and high quality things, right? And it's like it was tremendously accelerating his ability to do things. It was tremendously making his jewelry much more creative, but it was 100% human in the loop.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I think it's the same thing for all of our most successful projects where like the like AI is doing something, but you need to figure out how when the human has to intervene, basically. I don't know. Yeah. Is it yeah. Anyone else?
Yeah, the thing that jumped out to me on the LinkedIn thing, or yeah, I think one of the frames that works for me with Gen AI in the state that it's in right now is to try and think about like other things that they are. So like one of the things that would be helpful if you were to want a pipeline from a data lake to a data warehouse is something that can do compression, but does it based on heuristic rather than deterministic execution, which an LLM is like perfectly suited for. Or what I want, what I have.
Hey, how's it going?
What up? But I assume Manuel, your mic is on. And then like another thing is like I have a large corpora of data, which I guess is technically just a warehouse, but I have a platform and somebody else has written a bunch of code, i.e. n8n, and I need to stick this platform to this other platform, but I don't want to like sit down and write a whole big thing because I just like need the thing now. Well, one of the things that it could be good at is sort of compressing that distance. If one were to think about it in that paradigm, and I think that the thing that's jumping in mind with the LinkedIn Postmaker is so corpus 1 is human thoughts about what's happening. Corpus 2 and then corpus 2 is processed human thoughts plus like the historical context. And then my other place I want to go with it is like the other corpus that you could add to that one. And if you were to do compression here, heuristic oriented compression between the two corpuses, the other corpus I would pick is LinkedIn algorithm behavior. So I would be and then the frame there is like, okay, so if I what I'm they can be compression here, but they can be async compression, and that's the sort of jury rig that I want out of the model here. So if I'm thinking about that, I'm gonna keep building this corpus of interesting stuff, and then I'm gonna it's gonna throw processed stuff at me, and then I'm gonna taste make on that, and then I'm gonna throw it back into the compressor pipeline, if you will, and then what that's going to do is take the stuff, there's a new corpus, it's processed, it's the stuff that I like, and then the LLM is going to process all of the information about what the LinkedIn algorithm wants right now, whatever I can, find for it and give it, and then try to, run some workflows that try to post the particular posts that are like at the optimal time with the optimal tags or hashtags or whatever, and being able to like glue normally isolated things together quickly is sort of a useful thing for them to do. And I think it's like important to make sure that you're doing useful things with the AI rather than just like doing a thing because you can do it or because you've seen that it can do. I think picking what to do and you know, what way you're thinking about it is half the battle, I think, with these things really at the moment.
Yeah. Okay.
Can you spread that among executives?
Any executive who is mandating AI use right now is it is the worst possible thing you can do. Oh my God. That's what there's that. Y'all seen that article come out about work slop?
No, I didn't see
No?
that one.
Okay, well, yeah, there is an article and it's like, hey, there's a new thing that's happening. Everybody's getting mandated to use AI, so they're trying to use it in places that they shouldn't. And what is happening is that they know they shouldn't, but it takes them 5 minutes instead of an hour, so they do it that way anyway, and then don't like they don't try to mitigate it or pre-process it for you, which is like if I'm trying to speed something up, I'm not going to make somebody else read a bunch of slops. So I'm going to pre-read it for them after I did all that processing and then tell them about it. And that like but if I was just getting mandated by my boss and I kind of hate AI slop anyway, my reaction is obviously going to be, well, boss, if you want AI slop, I'll give you AI slop. So there's articles in Forbes about this being a thing. So that's a pretty good indicator that people are not approaching the problem correctly, which I think the correct approach for the problem is, hey, you don't have to use AI. There are some things that we're going to be using as a team to communicate, and you need to stay like there are certain things that you need to stay up to date on, and however you want to do that is fine. If you can do that without AI, great. But what and then if we can do it fast enough with AI where you can't keep up, then you got to figure it out. And then the other thing to do as leadership is, hey, did you see a cool AI tool and you want to try it? Yes, here's a blank check, like go try it, see if it fits into your workflow, and we'll do like a once a week powwow about all the shiny new toys everybody's playing with and like what's actually working and what sucks, basically. Which like if you want to spend money on making people use AI, that's how you do it, is you let them do it the way they want to do it. But yeah, anyway, tirade over, I guess.
Okay. Thanks, guys. This was fun. I'm glad I could present. Can I show a we're hiring slide?
Please.
I suppose you've earned that.
Anyway, here we're hiring. Oh yeah, it's fractional AI. We're hiring in New York and San Francisco and Raleigh, Durham. So if anyone's interested, let me know. Yeah, that's it. Thanks so much for letting me present.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. And call for everyone. You know, we want more. I think there were a number of topics that came up here that if you're digging into, you know, bringing them to a future conversation would be great. I think there's a lot of different interesting things to dig further on this. Or if you have some other project that you're working on that you want to share, you know, we're always looking for people to lead a presentation, to lead a discussion. It doesn't have to be polished or useful, it just has to be interesting. I think this one has got some useful things in there too. Thank you, Ben. All right. Cheers, everyone.